Okay, so we keep this whole series as anatomy of questions, and here we want to discuss about the detailed structure of a question, because if you understand the structure of a question very clearly, you can answer them fast. Okay, and sometimes understanding the structure is more important, even important than knowledge of the subject itself. So today we will talk about unit 1 and unit 2 questions. Okay, so 6 questions from each unit. Approximate number of questions you can expect from these units in part C in CSIR NET exam. So this is okay. So we are back with another class of anatomy of a question, and this time we'll talk about the unit 7 question. Those are human physiology questions. Although they some argue with this unit to be animal physiology, but the question they ask is from human physiology mostly, like 98% of the questions are from there. Sometimes they ask question from animal physiology, like the respiratory organ of different insects and different other organisms as well, or also let's say the excretory organ of different organism, those kind of questions, but mostly human physiology questions. So let's take a color and start to answer few of these group C questions from last year's CSIR NET paper. This is the first question. Respiration can be inhibited voluntarily for some time. The point at which respiration cannot be voluntarily inhibited is known as the breaking point. Following explanations are offered for the breaking point. The problem with this unit 7, and what I say is that unit 7 is not that of an economic unit. Although you read few stuff, but there is no guarantee that you are going to answer most of the question from unit 7, because of it's a huge unit and they can give you question from literally any place that we don't know for that details. So this is one kind of question. This is a question from a breaking point. Knowing the common respiratory system will not be enough to answer this question. So if you know about the breaking point, then you can take it, otherwise you should leave this. For example, if you read these statements, J receptor is one term, and there are terms like Herring-Brewer reflex. So these are new terms. Okay, most of the time for a biology student, this is a new term if you are not from human physiology background. If you are from human physiology MSc or BSc background, then you probably have heard this term, but for most of the students they have not. So in these cases the question is better to be left, but I'll explain that. Is that this 4 statements are there. Now think of this logically. We're talking about like holding our breath. Okay, so voluntarily we are putting the respiration on hold. So there is a perfect amount of time provided to do that. Beyond that time we cannot do that. What is the reason behind it? It's because of the J receptors stimulate the respiratory centers, or Herring-Brewer reflex operates, or the raise of atrial partial pressure of carbon dioxide stimulates the respiratory center, or the fall of arterial pressure of oxygen stimulates the respiratory center. So among this 4, we can tell one thing pretty surely, is that a situation where we are not taking up oxygen, when we are holding our breath, that means we are not taking up any oxygen. That means in the blood we have a decreased or a fall in the oxygen pressure, and also we have a rise in the carbon dioxide pressure. So it's pretty logical for the C and D to be true, isn't it? And one more interesting fact is that while the carbon dioxide pressure increases in the blood, that's a signal that we need to continue with the fast respiration process, because if you have a high partial pressure of CO2 in the blood, that is a pressure that tells the cell, tells the body to even continue the respiration faster. We take up more oxygen for that reason. So that's why we can say the C and D statements are correct in this case. So this should be the correct combination, only C and D, no other combinations. Although you need to know what is J receptor and Herring-Brewer reflex. So let me explain both of that. J receptors are situated in the alveoli near the pulmonary capillaries, in the alveoli wall, and they are connected to the centers by the non-myelinated fibers. They are stimulated by engorgement of the pulmonary capillaries and pulmonary edema, microembolism in lungs, and stimulation of these receptors lead to the inhibition of the skeletal muscles. which was is observed in the Bhopal gas tragedy, that due to the stimulation of these J receptors lead to the inhibition of skeletal muscle, so skeletal muscle cannot function, they cannot function properly. On the other hand, the Herring-Brewer reflex produced by stretch receptors in the wall of the bronchi or bronchiole, and this is to prevent the over expansion of the chest cavity, the over expansion of the lungs, because when we are starved for oxygen, we are taking up oxygen very fast, then our lung is going to be opened up, but there should be a capacity for the lung to expand, so that lung inflation and deflation capacity must be regulated in times of over inhalation of oxygen. So that is regulated by the muscle, the muscle that is present in the wall of bronchi and bronchiole, that is known as the Herring-Brewer's reflex. Okay, so this Herring-Brewer reflex as well as the J receptors role is not involved in any part of this voluntary stop of the oxygen intake. So that is due to definitely the rise in the partial pressure of the carbon dioxide in the blood as well as the fall in the oxygen pressure at the same time. So you see, this question is kind of difficult to answer even though you prepare unit 7, particularly respiration. Now let's look at this one. When a nerve fiber is stimulated with increasing strength of stimulus, the action potential fails to generate even though the threshold level may be passed. The following statements may explain the accommodation of nerve fiber. Now 4 statements are provided. Now when you read this, you instantly know that this question is from action potential, right? So you must know action potential of phenomena very well. You must know the steps of action potential very well to answer this. If you don't know, you should leave this question right away. But if you know, then this is a question that you can definitely answer. It states a critical number of, so it states that even though we are putting a nerve impulse, even though the threshold, the nerve impulse is above the threshold, but still it's not providing any sort of impulse. Okay, so even though we increase the strength of the stimulus, the action potential fails to generate. So there is no action potential generated even though we apply a stimulus from outside. Now what may be the cause for that? Okay, although we are applying a stimulus and which is beyond the threshold, the action potential must be originated. For the action potential to originate, there are 2 types of channels that play important role. One is the sodium channel, voltage gated sodium channel, and voltage gated potassium channel. Okay, so at the very beginning there are these 2 events of an action potential: depolarization, then a repolarization, and even extra polarization, or we can call it hyperpolarization. So what is depolarization terms? Normally in the cell the potential should be minus 70 millivolt, which is in the negative value. So depolarization means the value is going from negative to positive. This is depolarization. Repolarization is when again this value is moving from plus to minus, and a hyperpolarization means the membrane potential goes below resting membrane potential. So these are the 3 terms that you need to understand very well to answer any question from this action potential. If you know these 3, then you can easily answer that. Now read it. The critical number of open sodium channels required. Now about this depolarization, if I show you, what happens in depolarization occurs when the sodium channels open, because when the sodium channels open, sodium start coming inside the cell. So opening of sodium channel cause depolarization. Then this process continues, and when the sodium channel is closed and potassium channel opens up to take out potassium from the cell outside of the cell, that causes repolarization. Potassium channel open, sodium channel closed. And finally this potassium channel remains open and it will be closed, but as it is open for a long time, the negative charge inside the cell even decreased below 70 minus 70 millivolt, okay, below the resting membrane potential. Okay, so this is the idea. Now read it. Now the question is, even though we apply the stimulus, but the action potential failed to generate. What is the reason behind it? The critical number of open sodium channels required to trigger the action potential may never be attained due to the slow depolarization. This is a possibility because the depolarization process, if this process works very slowly, that means the sodium channels are not opening due to some problem, even though the stimulus is applied, but there is not enough for the sodium channels to open. So very slow depolarization, as a result of which, if sodium channels are not opening, then you can see this graph that is need to be in top plus 30 till plus 30 millivolt is not reaching plus 30, so it's reaching a little high. And as the sodium channels are opening very slowly, the time is passed and the potassium channels start to open up. So as potassium channels start opening up, then again quick repolarization will take place. Potassium channels open in response to slow depolarization, which makes the nerve fiber refractory to the depolarization. This is also true. What is the term refractory means? Refractory means stubborn. That means the nerve fiber becomes stubborn to depolarization, means depolarization process is halted and repolarization is begin because of the slow opening of the sodium channels. As the slow opening of the sodium channels, potassium channels opened up already to manage the time, and as the potassium channel opens up, there is no way the sodium channel opening or the depolarization is possible, because potassium channel will bring more and more potassium ion inside the cell. Okay, so as a result, that will not allow the impulse to generate. So A and B both are true. The low sodium threshold channels remain open when the increase in the threshold of the firing of action potential. There is no low threshold or high threshold of sodium channels. There are also, like this nerve impulse is all or none event. So either the channel will open or close. There is no slow or high threshold channels. And the fourth one, the efflux of sodium and influx of potassium due to operation of sodium potassium ATPase oppose the depolarization. Definitely not true. Remember, many people believe that sodium potassium ATPase pump is involved in the sodium potassium action potential, but actually it's not. The sodium potassium ATPase pump is used to balance the sodium potassium concentration at the end of the general maintenance of resting membrane potential. So the effect of sodium potassium ATPase pump is during the resting membrane potential and the maintenance of the resting membrane potential. So C and D are false, statement A and B are true. That means option 2 is the correct one in this case. Okay, so this is the mechanism based question. I also explained it again. So if you know that, you can answer it. Let's move on. Let's move on to another one. At 17 years, a 7 feet tall human was diagnosed with gigantism caused by pituitary tumor. Now, at this point, we know this question is from the endocrine system of the body, hormones. The condition was surgically corrected by removing the patient's pituitary gland. Doctors advised hormonal therapy. The possible hormonal therapies that would be required for the survival are, and the statements are provided. So this kind of questions I like, and if you see this kind of questions, you should always attain that because of the 100% marks you can expect. The thing is, the gigantism is caused due to the release of growth hormones, right? Growth hormones released from the pituitary gland. So the thing is, due to the higher production, the malproduction means a much higher production of growth hormone, the gigantism is caused. And the pituitary gland produces this. So the question here is that surgically doctors remove the pituitary gland so that the growth hormone cannot be produced. Okay, fine, growth hormone cannot be produced, but as the pituitary gland is removed, many other important hormones secreted by the pituitary gland cannot be produced as well. So the supplementary hormonal therapy needed is to supply that patient with all the necessary hormones that are secreted by pituitary gland except for the growth hormone. Got it? Because the person is already having a problem with growth hormone. So we should not provide him any growth hormone. We only provide him every other hormone secreted by pituitary except the growth hormone. So now Thyroid hormone secreted by pituitary, yes, thyroid stimulating hormones, we will provide that. Glucocorticoids, do we provide that? The thing is, yes, we will also provide that, because this is also being, like, the pituitary also influences the respective gland to produce glucocorticoids, so yes. And then the third one, glucagon is not produced from there, so no requirement. Growth hormone, although it's produced by the pituitary, but we should not supply that. Insulin, not provided by the pituitary, so we will not provide that. So we will only provide thyroid hormone and glucocorticoids, that is A and B only, that is option 1, that should be the correct option for this question. Got it? This is a very logical question from the function of pituitary gland. So if you think yourself, you know the function of pituitary gland, this is the type of question you can expect from the function of a gland and a hormone, okay? Given below are few statements with reference to blood clot formation which results from triggered chain of the reaction. Okay, so this is the process regarding the blood clot formation. Again, another mechanism based question where you need to know the mechanism and the sequential steps of the blood clot formation in human body, involving the blood clotting factor 7, 8 as well as fibrin, thrombin and all. Now this is what we are talking about, which of the following statements is correct with reference to the role of thrombin in the hemostasis. So role of thrombin in the process of hemostasis. So you need to know the blood clotting factors, and actually not all the factors, but you need to know the step and the process of blood clotting by the involvement of thrombin. And if you recall that picture, you can answer it. Okay, so this is the picture. The role of thrombin is in two different places. One is that the thrombin converts fibrinogen into fibrin, which is very much needed, and the thrombin also activate the blood clotting factor 8. So these are the two major event done by the thrombin. So conversion of fibrinogen into fibrin, yes. Activation of factor 8 which stabilizes fibrin mesh work, that is also true. A and B both are true. Okay, and among that, if A and B are true, we know that A and B both are true, so obviously we have the options either 2 and 4, 1 and 3, both the options are wrong. Now we need to think of activation factor 7 which promotes plasmin activation. No, activation factor 8 is involved in the plasmin activation, so C is false. Enhancement of platelet aggregation, that is true, that must be done, so obviously D is correct. So A, B, D, all the 3 are correct, so option 2 in this case is the correct option. Okay, so for this one you need to know 3 of them, the importance of thrombin as well as the 3 statements to know correctly to answer this question. Or you can also know if you read C, if the C is wrong, then obviously if the C is not true, then A4 is not true, so the option is any one of the 3. Now another interesting question. In high altitude, hypoxia reduces increased number of circulating red blood cells, which can be explained by the following changes. A. The transcription factors HIPs are produced. B. Erythropoietin secretion is increased. C. Myoglobin content is decreased. And D. Cytochrome oxidase is decreased. Now which of the following is not true? So I told you always, whenever you see this term not true, you read it as false. Which of the following term is false? Okay, so we are going to eliminate the true statements from there. The transcription factor HIPs. Now the thing is here, normally in hypoxia means our body is lacking the oxygen, the higher oxygen demand of the body, and we are not supplying that same amount of oxygen to the body cells. So in the hypoxia we need to produce more and more red blood cells. So erythropoietin is the protein which influences the production of erythropoiesis, that is the red blood cell production, that should be increased. So this is a true statement. This is a true statement. Okay, myoglobin content is decreased, which is bad, because in a situation of hypoxia where we have a low partial pressure of oxygen, myoglobin must be increased in the body, because the myoglobin can hold on to the oxygen for long duration of time compared to the hemoglobin. So this statement is false. Myoglobin content is decreased. This statement is definitely not true. Okay, this is false. And cytochrome oxidase is decreased. This is also false, because cytochrome oxidase must be present in the cell in higher amount to make sure that the mitochondria can function properly, because without the oxygen mitochondria cannot produce energy. So cytochrome oxidase is needed to continue the proper functioning of mitochondria. So both the myoglobin content is decreased and cytochrome oxidase decreased are wrong statements. So C and D are wrong, and there is only one option with C and D are wrong, that is option 4. Now we don't know about the option A. Even if you don't know about the option A, HIP, the transcription factors, you don't need to know that, but still we can answer this question with the logic that yes, myoglobin content is decreased and this is a false statement. And if C is a false statement, then either option 3 or option 4 is correct. You can easily eliminate both option 1 and 2. So among this option 3 and 4, we only need to judge the statement B, and we know B is true, so obviously 3 is not true, 4 is the statement, because we only need to find the false statement here. Okay, so that's how you solve this question with the presence of mind and reading the question slowly. Move to the next one. Which of the following gives the correct human disease causal microbe match? Okay, this kind of question can be asked in unit 4 as well as in unit 7. Doesn't matter, because these are human diseases. So disease causing agent with the match. So again, I told you earlier, I am telling you again, in this kind of matching question you always attain that, because if you know 2 out of 4 of them, you can still answer that. So the easiest is the chronic gastritis. Gastritis means obviously gastritis is caused by Helicobacter pylori. So A will be with 2. So A with 2, find out the option now. A with 2 is 1 and 2. So 3 and 4 definitely not true. So we are now with 50% tie between option 1 and option 2. Now let's read the other one. You need to know whether Lyme disease is caused by either Borrelia or Rickettsia. You need to know that. We know Lyme disease is caused by Borrelia burgdorferi. If the Lyme disease is caused by Borrelia burgdorferi, that is B equals 1. That means obviously option 1 is correct. You don't need to even read the other columns. But still, let's read it. The scarlet fever is caused by Streptococcus pyogenes, and typhus is caused by Rickettsia prowazekii. Okay, so these will be the correct statements. So these questions are also easy. Just like the combination question, you can also answer this type of match type questions quite easily without much of difficulty. But always when you read the question, read the options, check the options, and always believe in option mediated answering of the part C questions, particularly in the combination questions as well as in this kind of match type questions. Okay, yes, the answer is yes. If you ask yourself this question, that can you qualify CSIR NET life science exam within 6-month preparation? Yes. And if you don't need to believe me, just see the results that our students are getting who joined Shomu's biology coaching for 6-month period of time.
So I'm really thankful for Shomu's biology, and I would suggest everyone to go for it.
A lot of help and support by Suman sir always remembered in my mind.
The study materials I got helped me to understanding the topic very well, and the test series helped me to covering up the syllabus in a perfect time.
This is all because of the online test series.
In-depth knowledge what Shomu's biology gave me. I want to thank Shomu biology. I want to thank each and every member of Shomu's biology for their effort, whatever they are putting on us.
And I am very much happy to choose Shomu sir for my CSIR NET JRF journey.
It really leveled up my preparation. I was confident on the day of exam.
The classes helped me a lot to understand my subject from very basics to advanced level.
So I really thanks Shomu sir and also ma'am for always guiding me.
With proper guidance, roadmap, and the help and training with perfect amount of study material and how to utilize them, the resources, everything together can help you qualify that. I am the person who will help you reach to the pinnacle of your success and your journey for the CSIR NET Life Science examination. If you trust me, if you trust my lectures, then join Shomu's Biology online coaching. Registration is going on. The details are there in the description. Fill the form to reach out to us or simply contact the number given in this video.